Oh my god. Didn't even begin the spiel. Boo yourself. Hi, Gray. How are you? um, yeah. Welcome to Energetic Games. My name's Natalie, and oh, no, we're not muty. We're here now. We're here. Give me a moment. Okay, that makes more sense. Well, okay. At least it's not me this time. That's fine. So, we shall begin again. Welcome to Synergetic Games. My name is Natalie, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be reading Kingdom by the Sea by Robert Westall, which we, sorry, I'm so tired. We're gonna be doing this until the book finishes. Then we'll pick something else. I was debating reading some Dungeons and Dragons fanfiction. Sorry, stories. I think it technically counts as canon, but the story of Drizzt. I've got like the first 3 books. Should be fun and interesting. I've actually read the first, I've only read the first one, but only part of it, because I keep putting it down and then starting it and then stopping it and then starting it and then stopping it, and it does that, thing. But I really love the description and the imagery, and it's really cool. So I was thinking I'll read you guys some Tales of Drizzt, the Dark Elf. So if you're even remotely familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, that's cool. He is a cool dude. But yes, that's where I might go with that in the future, or I might just troll Daniel and just read more Harry Potter books, just because. Tell you what, one thing that I'd be I definitely don't plan on doing is reading any of the Harry Potter plays. I've got The Crimes of Grindelwald, which I still need to read. We read The Cursed Child, which is a play. There are plays, yeah. They published Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them in the form of a play. They've published What's It of Grindelwald as a play, and The Cursed Child as a play. Did I say that? Because if I said Cursed Child twice, I meant to say Fantastic Beasts. So yeah, technically, those are plays. Or at least film scripts, at the very least. Some people regard the Cursed Child as canon, but I think it's a weird fever dream that J.K. Rowling didn't write but stuck her name on. And apart from many of the other issues surrounding J.K. Rowling, that's probably one of the cheapest things I've ever seen somebody do. It's so uncool. Why would you do that? Sorry, I'll stop. But like, I personally do not regard The Cursed Child as canon at all, ever. Whew, that's a whole tin of worms. I do apologize. I'm gonna enjoy my large cup of tea, and we are going to get into story. I will stop rambling about Harry Potter. But yeah, other than that, oh, pardon me. Excuse, I've just realized that I have to reset a few things. What are you doing? Why are you... Stream Elements keeps logging me out of things, and it really shouldn't do that. It's not allowed to do that. But don't worry, shan't take too long. Hi, Abnock, how you been? I was just going on about how I might troll you with some more Harry Potter stories, or some Drizzt stories. One of the two. But yeah. I'm gonna get into the book now, and I don't know how long the stream's gonna be. My phone do a rattle when I shake it. I think it might be because the mini restarts and my lack of notification setting. It must be fixed, yeah. So we voted Harry Potter was happening. Yep, there was a poll and everything, and the Harry Potter won. Because it was the choice between Harry Potter and Dungeons and Dragons, and the community has failed you, Abnock. I apologize for that. Okay. But what if you were the community? Sorry, I just thought I'd turn some warmer light on there. I felt like it was a bit dark. I don't know about you, but it felt dark to me. Yeah, it was a joke. Harry Potter may or may not happen. It depends on how much I can be bothered to think about what I want to read next, because like it seems like a natural progression to go from Harry Potter to a random book to Harry Potter again. But it will at least with these streams it will take much less time to get through in theory. But why though? Just to mess with you, that's all. That's all. No specific reason. I just want to mess with you. Just read War and Peace next. Yeah, that's not like the biggest book in the history of ever, excluding maybe an anthology or two. Oh God, what are those massive books? Encyclopedias. That's the one. I may as well read an encyclopedia. That's what you're saying when you suggest War and Peace, which I will probably never read. It's not so much that I won't ever read it on the channel, it's just that I don't even think I own the book, and I probably won't pursue it because I've heard enough about it that it's gonna be just a pain in the butt. Just read the Encyclopedia Britannica. Maybe I will. Has it got anything about Vikings in it? Because we could read some stuff about Vikings. I don't mind. Okay, so we'll begin again. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves while I read. Chapter 7. Here we go. We begin. The rain caught them on the move. They were traveling by night now. Since the business with the farmer, Harry's fear of farmers and policemen was very great. The rain didn't catch Harry without warning. There was a warning in the change of sounds, in the silence. Every noise came to him as clear as a bell, as they struggled along the fringe of the beach in the dark. The dog barking, voices in the kitchen of a fisherman's cottage, the very breathing of the sea, and its silences in between were cushioned, velvety. Velvety. Jeez. And then there was a warm, damp pressure on his left cheek. He knew that rain was coming, but there was nowhere to run to. No upturned boats, no abandoned sheds, not even a shallow cave in a low cliff. Nothing. He tried to hurry in the dark, but that just meant he tripped up more often. The stars were wiped out one by one, starting with the ones in the west. When half the stars were gone, the first huge dollop of rain smacked him in the face. He stood, for a moment, full of rage and despair. "No!" he shouted. "Oh, no!" But there was no one to hear, no one to help. All he could do was press on. The dollops came more often. And then they came in a drumming roar on the sand. It was like having a hose pipe turned on you. His hair settled in streaks across his eyes, dribbling slightly salty water straight into his mouth. The water began to get inside the collar of his raincoat. Then it ran down his back. It broke in through the raincoat at his shoulders, where the strap of the blankets pressed, making his goose-flesh skin crawl and shudder. Soon it was running down his legs and sloshing in his shoes, and everything was sodden. There came a time when he graspingly knew he couldn't get any wetter. His clothes began to chafe his skin like wet ropes. The handle of the attaché case grew too slippery to hold, so he kept dropping it. He knew the blankets must be getting sodden too, for they grew heavier and heavier, and the strap cut more and more. Good. I turned the page, and it turns out I skipped one, so we're fine. Don just plodded along beside him, occasionally shaking himself to get the water out of his coat. Everything was melting away. All his plans, all his hopes, all his sense. Except a stubborn voice that went on telling him to keep going. Keep going. He would have walked straight past the place in his misery. He had given up looking around. The rain beat in his eyes too much. But the dog stopped and looked left and sniffed. So Harry looked too. There was a dip in the low cliff, a sheltered tiny cove with a little leaping stream, and what looked like 3 or 4 small abandoned railway carriages, without their wheels, dotted about. There were no lights in them, no smoke coming from their chimneys. The night sky shone through their big windows. A last savage burst of energy drove him up the bank of the stream, slipping and slithering. His feet went into the stream and didn't feel any wetter, although the mud on the bottom sucked at his shoe treacherously, and he almost lost it. Then he was in the lee of the first carriage. The rain stopped battering his face, and he came to his senses. He tried a door on the first carriage, but it was locked. He tried all the carriage's doors, but they were locked. But he could see through the carriage windows tantalizing objects in the gloom. Beds and heaps of blankets, a cast-iron stove, a box of knives and forks. He ran across and tried the next carriage. That was locked too, but he saw deck chairs piled and aluminum pots and pans and on a paraffin stove, even a pile of food tins in an open cupboard. There was shelter in there, and dry blankets and food, so close, only a sheet of glass away. He crossed to the third carriage, and the wind and the rain hit him with renewed ferocity, so he staggered and fell down. His mind was a roaring turmoil. He would die. The dog would die. They had a right to live, as much right as these people who own these holiday railway carriages. They had another home somewhere. They weren't out in this storm. He made up his mind he would smash the glass on the last carriage if it was locked. The door opened as he turned the handle. He splashed back for his bundles. Come on, boy! Come on, boy! The dog needed no second telling. They were out of the rain, with the door shut in a flash. The storm was only screaming around the corners of the carriage, and the rain mashing harmlessly against the great windows and drumming on the roof. The whole place smelt musty, as if nobody had lived there for a long time. There was a great brass paraffin lamp hanging from the ceiling. He knew the sort. His gran had once had one just like it. He swung it, plenty of paraffin plugged inside. He lifted out the glass funnel carefully because he was shivering all over, remembered which way to turn the little brass wheel so that the wicks came up, instead of vanishing down inside. He groped the attaché case open and felt for the matches he'd had so long ago. They were still dry. It was a good attaché case. But his hands were wet, and that might spoil the matches. He found something in the dark to dry them on. It took a long time to dry them. The rain seemed to have soaked right inside them, as if they were a sodden dishcloth. The golden light sprang up and lit the carriage, and he immediately panicked about the blackout. But there were thick, thick curtains. He felt their dusty dryness, and he drew them safe. It was then he saw a piece of writing, propped up against the flower vase on the little table. It was on a piece of thick white cardboard, probably cut from a shoebox. It said, "To the lost traveller, you are welcome here, friend. The door is not locked. Sleep if you wish, eat what you need. We are glad that, even in wartime, we could leave you something. Go on your way in the morning refreshed. Please leave things as you found them for the next person in need. Pay if you can for what you have had, but if you cannot, do not worry. Pray for us as we will pray for you. Jack, Harriet, Susan, and Shirley." P.S. We hope you will be as happy here as we have always been. P.P.S. Spare paraffin in the can outside. There was a framed photograph by the side of the note, propped up on its little leg at the back. It was of a vicar in his dog collar, and his wife and 2 little girls. They were all smiling at the camera in a broad, friendly way. They looked nice. Harry stared around. The carriage was just one big room, except for a plank wall with a door at one side. Beyond the door was a little table with an enamel bowl and ewer, and a lot of hooks on the wall. All the railway seats were gone, but there was a wood stove with paper and sticks and poles, a big table with plates, easy chair, and bunk beds made up with sheep. It was weird, like Goldilocks in the house of the 3 bears. He was almost afraid to touch anything, except the family kept smiling at him from the photograph as if urging him on. A big shiver warned him to get out get out of his sopping clothes. Besides, they were dripping on the floor, making puddles. He tossed them down in the enamel basin and wrapped himself in a brown blanket. After that, there was the dog to dry, the stove to light, a huge tin of baked beans to open and share. So much to do, and he was so weary. But at last he could crawl into a bunk, leave all his wet things to steam on the chairs around the glowing stove. He was on the verge of sleep that he remembered the bargain he had struck. Please God, keep Jack, Harriet, Susan, and Shirley safe. He had a fleeting image of their smiling faces as he lay with his eyes shut. Then he had an image of his own house bombed flat, smelling of gas and burning with little low blue flames. God didn't seem to have anything to say in reply. But then God, in Harry's experience, never had. He stayed 2 days of endless rain. He stayed warm and snug. He got everything nice and dry, though his trousers seemed to have shrunk a bit. His old mates would have said that he were flying at half-mast. He ate the food, spam, corned beef, and endless baked beans. Even tinned peaches, which he hated and the dog wouldn't touch. He felt very guilty. Every tin he ate. But what could he do? Every tin he opened, he looked at the family for reassurance. They went on smiling at him. He seemed to get to know them very well. He read all the girls' comics. The little one must have read Puck. The eldest seemed to like boys' comics like Hotspur and Adventure. The mother had read Women's Weekly, but all the vicar had left behind was a big black Bible and a copy of the Pilgrim's Progress. By the second afternoon he had read everything else, and was reduced to looking up the dirty bits on the Bible, where so-and-so lay with so-and-so. And then he looked at the ever-smiling family on the table and felt deeply ashamed. He found the Pilgrim's Progress not much easier. But there was one bit that took his fancy. I saw a man clothed in rags, with his face from his own house, and a book in his hand, and a great burden on his back. I looked and I saw him open the book and read therein. And as he read, he wept and trembled, and broke out with a lamentable cry, saying, "What shall I do?" That was his own state, really, wasn't it? It was a slight comfort to realize people had been in this kind of jam before, that there was a name for it. "I'm a pilgrim," he said out loud, liking the word. Pilgrim. The third morning dawned bright and clear. He got up the moment he wakened, the moment he realized the rain had stopped. He flung back the curtains, and the old blue sky was back, horizon to horizon. There was a mist out to sea. That meant it was going to be a really hot day. The dog pleaded urgently to go out, relieved itself, then began running madly in circles around the carriages. It was ready for the road, and so was he. But he left with care, piled his bags outside first, then cleaned out the stove, made the bed, swept and dusted. He thought it looked pretty good, just like it had been when he arrived. He wrote a note saying, "Thank you, a pilgrim." He hovered, undecided whether to leave a 10-shilling note under the photograph or a pound in the end. Or a pound. In the end, he settled for a pound. He had eaten an awful lot, and it was on the ration. He was just picking up the attaché case when he saw the old man coming up from the beach. He was not in the least afraid of the old man. He had silver hair and walked painfully with a stick. A puff of wind would have blown him away. It would be hours before the old man could get to the police. "Morning," said the old man, coming up to the door. "That's a grand dog you've got." The old man's eyes were very sharp, took in Harry's face, his clothes, his luggage, and the pound note on the table, all in one glance. "Thanks for leaving the pound note." "I was here 2 days and 3 nights, said Harry, "and I ate an awful lot." "That's all right, son." "And you left the place nice, too. Good lad." There was such gratitude in the old man's voice that Harry grew bold. "Is this your railway carriage?" "No, it was my lad's. The vicar, Jack." "Aye, Jack, God rest him. Is he dead?" Harry's voice rose to a squeak he couldn't control. "Aye, and his missus, and the burns, in the bombing at Newcastle, a year gone. They all went together, one little bomb on the vicarage. The houses each side were scarce touched. But, Harry stared around the carriage. They seemed so... He couldn't get it out. "Alive? Aye, they're here, if they're anywhere. That's why I keep the place on. They bought it to come and be near me on their holidays. They were that happy here, always laughing." "I'm sorry," said Harry. The old man put a hand on Harry's arm. "Don't be sorry, son. You're the first customer we've had. I used to reckon they were mad, leaving the door unlocked." Leaving the door unlocked when they weren't here. And then that notice on the table. But Jack always said that anyone of ill will could soon smash a door or a window open, and he'd be in a rage by the time he'd got inside. Whereas if he was welcomed, he'd respect the place. You've proven my Jack right. My Jack was right after all, son. Thank you. It gives me the strength to go on with things. Here, God bless you, whoever you are." Tears stood out in his old eyes. "What's your name, son?" "I'm going to write it in the book. The first name." "Harry Bagley." "And might I ask where you're headed?" asked the old man very gently. "Just up the coast," said Harry. "I'm a pilgrim." "Can't believe you're late. This is your story, bro. Can't believe you've done this." "Hi, Chopper. How are you?" "Welcome to story time. It was a bit early, to be fair, but I was bored." "I'm okay. I was a bit migrainey earlier, but I'm doing better now. So I couldn't really say no to a stream." Schedule says 10. It sure does. But that's what Discord is for. Have you not joined? I'm sure you have. I left an announcement. If you haven't joined the Discord, do join, even if you're not a sub. Because you'll at least get the announcements, if nothing else. Okay, let's go. Yeah. Give me a moment. God bless you, Harry Bagley. said the old man. You and your dog. So the missed a bit. Oh, you're gone into Holy Island. Lindisfarne? Lindisfarne? How do you even... I'll write it down for you. Fern. Lindisfarne. Is that how you say it? Am I right? Because I've never never heard of this place ever. Fern. Fawn. Fawn. Is it Fawn? Lindisfarne. Okay, good, cool, great. Yes, said Harry, though he hadn't decided till that very moment. Now, somehow, he had to go to Lindisfarne. God bless you, Harry Bugley, said the old man. You and your dog. Tears grew in Harry's own eyes. He suddenly felt he wanted to tell the old man everything about the bombing. It was like a great weight of water inside him, held back by a thin, thin dam. But the old man had enough troubles of his own, and the old man was happy now, in a way. Harry couldn't bear to spoil his happiness, to let all the misery inside himself loose in the world. Tara, he said abruptly, before he broke down. Shouldered his blankets, picked up his case, and went. But he turned and waved before he was out of sight. The old man was sitting on the step of the carriage, lighting his pipe. He waved back. The road to Holy Island is tidal if you go and the tide changes. You're staying? And the road goes underwater. Oh, do you know, that reminds me, that's essentially a plot point, really, isn't it? In, like, The Woman in Black. If you haven't seen that film, I think it's a book too, but I haven't read the book. I've seen the film adaptation with Daniel Radcliffe, but it's essentially a plot point, isn't it? Allow me to turn the page. Chapter 8. The light was failing as they came off the rocks and into the sight of Druridge Bay. Gosh, I am not good at pronouncing words today. That is. I haven't been good all week at that, to be honest. I'm just failing at existing. Whew, pardon me. Trying not to yawn, but it's not helping. That was always the worst time, when the light failed. It was all right in the morning when the sun was shining and the whole day lay ahead. It was nice to doze and watch the dog swimming in the heat of the noonday sun. But getting dark had always been home time. Draw the curtains and wait for Dad to come from work time, the time man began to cook supper. Druridge Bay was 5 miles of sand dunes, low cliffs, and empty sand. Not a thing stirred in the whole long curve of it. 5 weary miles of nothing. And he had nothing to eat again. He stared around blankly, out to sea. Some buoys and floats bobbed meaninglessly. Druridge Bay, Dad once said, was a bombing range for the RAF, simply because nobody ever went there. He wondered wearily whether a plane would appear and drop a bomb on him and the dog. It would solve a lot of problems. Oh my god, that's so depressing. I have a friend that says, I woke up this morning, which was a bonus. Yep, that sounds legit. Thank you. Thank you, Chopper. Didn't see your comment just until now. But yeah. But like, has everyone avoided the windy stuff? What windy stuff? Do you mean windy stuff or windy stuff? I don't know why I'm asking you to clarify. Storms. Dude. I have avoided the windy stuff. My gosh. Got a phone call today to say I have like 4 emergency jobs on Monday. Oh, I see. You guys are suffering weather. Okay, well, I apologize. It was a bit windy today, but as far as I know, nothing terrible is happening. At least in my area. But I can totes imagine that, you know, the further north you go, the more weather you get. At least you've got work to do, Chopper. Didn't see any of it on the south coast. Yeah, southeast rarely sees anything exciting, I swear. I mean, maybe the occasional fallen tree, but honestly, like, nothing. We barely get snow, if any. Oh, sorry. But yeah, this guy going like, I feel like that's a very modern sensibility, isn't it? Just, you know what, drop a bomb, it'll solve everybody's problems, I'll see you later. Poor guy, he has become modern. He wondered wearily whether a plane would appear and drop a bomb on him and the dog. It would solve a lot of problems. But the dog seemed to have found something under the low, crumbling, mud-coloured cliff. The dog was circling and barking. He put on a weary spurt to catch up. The dog was barking at a very odd building, tucked under the cliff. A long box of the building, like a sagging shed. He wants fish and chips. Who doesn't want fish and chips? Let's be real. A fisherman's hut? But surely even the poorest fisherman could do better than this. It was a shed made of patches of withered plank, of tins hammered flat and nailed on. Patches of corrugated iron, patches of old lino, with the pattern still on it, but all painted with black tar against the wind and the rain. And at the far end, a thin stovepipe chimney, from which came smoke and the smell of cooking fish. It must be the smell of the cooking that was making the dog bark. He was still about 50 yards away when a door in the patchwork swung open, and a figure emerged and flung a piece of what looked like wood at the dog. It flew straight and true and hit the dog on the back side. How dare you! Don gave a yelp and fled to a safe distance. Hey! Shouted Harry. That's my dog! The figure turned. It was very tall and remarkably thin, with pale bare feet, and trousers that finished raggedly halfway up his halfway up its legs. All in black it was, with a long thin neck and long thin face, and hair that glinted silver in the last of the light. It looked eerie, like a ghost or scarecrow, but it said, in a pettish voice, "You should keep your dog under better control then." "It's 'cause he's hungry." "You shouldn't keep a dog if you can't afford to feed it." It was a voice like a scolding old granny's when she came to her front door to tell you not to make so much noise playing. But it looked like a man. His hair was cut all ragged behind, and his face was so old, even the wrinkles had wrinkles. But he moved as quick as a kid, a nervous kid. "What's your name?" "Harry Bagley." There was no harm in telling this oddball. Nobody would ever believe what he said. "And what you doing round here at this time of night?" "Harry Bagley. If your parents had any sense, you'd be in bed or doing your own work." "They're dead," said Harry. "Killed in the bombing." This bloke was so weird, you really could tell him anything. "So you're an orphan," said the figure. "So am I. Suppose you'd better come in then." Harry hesitated, remembering Dad's warnings about going with strangers. But this bloke sounded reluctant, as if he didn't want to ask Harry in really, as if he didn't want to be bothered. But he felt it was his duty. "Can I bring the dog in?" "If it shuts up and minds its manners." There's chanting outside. Wonder if town's team open. I think there's definitely sports ball going on. Next door was singing loudly in sports. Singing in sports. That dog better eat his food, or at least what is given. It was dark inside the strange hut. There was only the light of the burning stove, which appeared to be cut out of a big, thick oil drum, and a couple of lighted wicks, which floated in a yellow liquid in rusty tin cans. The smell of burning rotten fish was overpowering. Harry felt a bit sick. "Sit down," said the man. "Sit down," the man pointed, and at an unpainted keg stamped Danish butter. Harry sat and stared around. The walls were hung with all kinds of things. 3 ships' lifebelts, a huge unlit ship's lantern, a broken rudder of a fishing boat, rusty saws and hammers. The man followed Harry's eyes. All from the sea," he said with a strange pride. "All from the sea. I'm an orphan, but the sea is my father and my mother." Don began nosing around. "Keep that dog still or you'll have to go," shouted the man suddenly and shrilly. Harry, hearing the sudden patter of rain on the roof, grabbed Don's collar and said carefully, "What's your name?" Joseph Kilty. "Everybody knows me round here. For miles around. I used to be a clerk at Smithstock's afore my mother died, God rest her. Then I came here. Do you want some fish stew?" "Yes, please," said Harry. He didn't know which was worse, feeling ravenous or feeling sick from the smell of burning fish. But when the fish stew was ladled out in a pot on the stove and given to him with an incredibly battered spoon, it tasted marvellous. Don sniffed at the bowl hungrily, hopefully. "Have you got something for my dog?" asked Harry cautiously. "Does he eat raw fish?" "He'll eat anything." The man produced a large whole fish from somewhere and lured the dog outside with it and slammed the door. I'm not having him making a mess in here. They both listened in silence to the sound of chewing outside the door. Then Harry said, "How long you lived here?" "Since afore the war. The last war was none of my business. Neither is this one. I thought the gremlins might be... the gremlins? Sorry, I completely misread the word Germans. I thought the Germans might be going to land here a couple years ago, but they seem to have changed their minds now. Want to listen to the news?" Without waiting for Harry to say yes, he swung around and turned on a large old-fashioned radio with a proud flourish. That radio was the one thing the sea didn't give me. I bought it second-hand at Hardy's in Amble. I bought it with the money I got for the fish. It runs on batteries. I buy them with money from the fish, too. They listened in silence to Bruce Belfrage reading the news. The news wasn't very good, as usual. The Eighth Army were retreating in the north, in the western desert. The Russians were retreating around Smolensk. Smolensk? The RAF had sustained comparatively light losses bombing Germany. The man switched off. Must save the batteries. "How are you going to manage now you're an orphan?" "Dunno," said Harry warily. "You can always manage by the sea," said the man. "I've learnt that the hard way over 30 years. I'll show you how if you like. Then you'll have to go away and find your own peach. There's not room for two here on this one. Is that a bargain?" "That's nice of you," said Harry, and found he meant it. "Just doing me bit for the war effort," said the man. "You'll have to sleep outside, though, with a dog. In the shed." And he immediately led Harry to the door, taking the empty ball off him as he went. The shed was simply one end of the long building, with a wall missing. It was full of propped up, salt-stained planks of wood, old fish boxes and lumps of cork. Don followed the well-chewed remains. Oh my gosh, brain. Don followed the well-chewed remains of the fish still in his mouth. The wind, getting up, howled around the open shed, blowing in both spots of rain and rifts of hissing dry sand. "You'll make yourself snug enough here," said the man. "Well, good night to you." And he went in and slammed the door hard. Harry managed to build some kind of shelter for himself and Don behind the propped up wood. A hand shook his shoulder. "Time to get up. Tide's on the turn. Time's a wasting. Drink this." The man thrust a very chipped enamel mug into Harry's hand. Harry sipped it. He thought it was tea without milk or sugar. It was as bitter as gall. But after he drank it, he felt better. He peered out of his shelter. Dawn was breaking, a steely slit between grey sky and dark sea. There was a brisk breeze, with rain in it. Then the man was back and handing him 3 straw fish baskets with handles. "That one's for sea coal, and that one's for slank, and that one's for anything interesting you find." "Like what?" "You'll see," said the man, striding off with what seemed to be 4 straw baskets in each hand. "Not to worry, I will check it out after the stream." I'm still quite thoroughly debating the next book, but don't worry, we don't have to think about it for some time. I took a quick peek. Pardon me, where am I? You'll see, said the man, striding off with what seemed to be 4 straw baskets in each hand. After 2 hours, Harry's back was breaking. He was soaked and his knees were caked with sand, and he lost all feeling in his hands from cold and wet. They were red and swollen, and yet he was still fascinated. The man stalking the tide line bent double all the time, looking as natural as a heron on the hunt for its breakfast. He stalked with a heron stride. He dipped with his hand like a heron striking. His feet even looked like heron's feet, bony and splayed and grey. And he must have eyes like gimlets. He didn't just find sea coal, which Harry soon learnt to recognise. The slank, which was a particular kind of seaweed, which the man said was better for you than green vegetables. He found a penny with a king's head almost worn away by the sea and sand. He found a round rusty tin, still half full of sweet-smelling tobacco. He found a sodden navy blue jumper with one elbow worn out. But it would darn. A baby's dummy, nearly new, and a deflated rubber bathing room that could be repaired. 2 crabs stranded by the tide, a dead flatfish that was sniffed and pronounced still fresh, and a crippled seabird that he dispatched with one blow of a charred plank, saying it would make supper. But he was most jubilant about some orangey stones, which he said were amber. These started, he said, as lumps of resin oozing out of a fir tree in Denmark hundreds and hundreds of years ago. I got a piece once with a fly caught inside. All those hundreds of years ago. The fellow who comes from Newcastle gave me 5 bob for that one. They usually make women's beads out of them. But that one with a fly in it was special. It was sent to a museum in America. He had said, "Not much of a morning. They've not been bombing these last few days. No fish. Come on, I'll give you some breakfast." They staggered up the beach, carried loads of charred wood, as well as full bags of sea coal and slank. "Hi, Laffy Taffy." "It's Harry Potter. How you been?" Oh, here we are. He learnt to live with Joseph, learnt when to stand up for himself and when to bend. Joseph had moods. In the morning he was as cruel and savage as a gull. If the dog got in his way, he would kick it, with those grey iron hard bare feet. If Harry got in the way, he would kick him too. There was no arguing with Joseph in the mornings. He would get hysterical, screaming at you so that his spit landed on your face. He would tell you to pack your bags and go. In the afternoons, especially if it was sunny, he would sing to himself the old songs of a whole war ago. Keep the home fires burning. If he found something good in the afternoon, He would caper around like a boy. The afternoon they found a whole keg of butter, 3/4 buried in the sand. He grabbed Harry and waltzed with him halfway down the beach, working out how many radio batteries the money from the keg would buy. Oh, jeez. Knew a lady who was screaming so loud once she spat her fake teeth out. I've never met anyone get that angry. To the best of my knowledge. Who knows? Maybe I've been that angry. Only I don't have fake teeth, so it's a whole thing. At the end of the working day, after the mug of the vile tea, he would get dressed up in an old shiny black suit and even boots and cycle on his old butcher's boy bike up to the town of Amble, with his carrier laden with loot for the grocers and the second-hand shop. It was the only time he ever wore anything on his feet, and the collar and tie as well. To be fair, if you live on a beach, there's not much point in footwear. Like, unless you plan on trawling like into wet sand, then in that case you'll probably want to wear something on your feet. But if you haven't got anything, it's better than wearing, dress shoes. Some may disagree. Pardon me. Never wore anything on his feet. And a collar and a tie as well. He looked almost normal. When he came back, he would get the supper and tell Harry word for word what he had said to the grocer and how he'd put one over the second-hand dealer. That was the time to ask him for favors. He would even give you things without being asked. Sometimes the things were useful, like a clasp knife with blades honed down until they were like sickles. Sometimes they were useless, like a photograph or a little girl in a Victorian sailor suit. Later in the evening, he would drink from black bottles and put his arms around you and tell you the story of his life or his philosophies. Or philosophize, my bad. I lived on a beach in Wales for a while. Long story that involved the police and customs. Yes, it does depend on the type of beach. Like, if it's a pebble beach, put your damn shoes on. But like, I was thinking of sand beaches and things like sea anemones and stepping on things that you probably don't want to be stepping on. But like, rock pools, I can get wanting to wear shoes and things. It was a nice sandy beach and a really nice place. I enjoy beaches. I do. Like, I don't know if they're like my go-to place to be, but like I like beaches. I have experienced my share of many beaches. I love like really fine white sandy beaches with like really blue or green water and stuff. Like coral outcroppings are always fun. It's cool. Have a bit of a snorkel round. It's cool. The only downside was that customs had seized my leather. Really? Well, that's not ideal. It's really not. Did you get it back? Like, ever? You did. Okay, good. That's good. As long as you didn't just lose your car forever. That would be awful. Okay. Everything's good for something. Everything's good for something, Harry. Everything's good for something. A dead fish has no use for its body, but the seagull that finds it has. A wrecked ship's no good to a sailor, but it's good for firewood. This war's bad for sailors, but it's good for me. I find dead uns, drag them above high water and go for the Coast Guard. They pay me £1 for every dead un. And when I die, I hope to go on the beach. Good for the fish, good for the gulls. Don't want to lie in no dark hole when I'm dead. Everything does have a use for something. When he started to talk about being dead, it was time to retire to the shed for the night. Lie cuddled up with Don and listened to Joseph shouting at himself, and at his dead mother, and at God. And then it was morning again. You never asked what you were eating with Joseph cooking. But the funny thing was, it always tasted good. You never got ill. And you learnt so much. It was like being back at school again. Until the day the bombers came, the British bombers. They hadn't been on the beach for more than 2 hours when the first bomber came. Hard up the coast, at 0 height, skirting Beacon Point and the Scars. A mutter, a roar, a scream of engines, tiny bombs dropping from its yellow belly. At the yellow markers floating so peacefully in Druridge Bay. It was a strange bomber to Harry. Not one out of the war magazines or aircraft recognition booklets his dad had had. It had a little solid pointed nose and 2 pointed engines, and an oval tail fin. It must be a new sort. The tiny bombs exploded, sending up plumes of white foam and banging Harry's ears painfully. But Joseph was dancing again, waving wildly at as the second bomber started its run. Tide's coming in. Fresh fish for tea tonight. Run and get the boxes, lad. All the boxes you can find. Harry fetched all the boxes they had. Joseph had obviously given up beachcombing for the day. He just stood and watched and waved as 10 bombers came, one after the other. Then the bay was quiet again. Where were all these marvelous fish? Then suddenly a wave broke on the shore. That was silver, a solid wave of fish, tiny and large and enormous, and all dead. Fish to pick up in handfuls, fish to fill boxes till they could hold no more, and still the fish came. And still Joseph capered, drunk with joy. When the fish stopped coming, he put on his suit and went to Amble to telephone, leaving Harry on guard. Soon after he returned, a green van came, with 3 men to load the fish. They stared curiously at Harry before they paid Joseph and drove away. Joseph turned to Harry and said, "Those men asked your name. I think they've gone for the police. They don't like you being with me. They think I'm potty." He tapped his head. "They think I'll do bad things to you. Because I'm potty." He tapped his head again. "Better go now, Harry. Go and find your own beach. I taught you all I know. The sea will be your mother and father now. Goodbye." Then he turned and walked away, not up to the shed, but towards his bike in Amble. He mounted. He shouted, "I didn't see which way you went." And then he was gone. And Harry was on the run again. Hey, Starbreeze! How you been? I was actually gonna stop it there for the evening. I'm feeling my voice start to go again. I normally can do better, but not today, apparently. It's not happening today. But yeah. If you guys missed story time, I'll just, we'll finish the VOD and then we'll get to the story again once the video is over. You enjoyed what you were awake to hear. Excellent. But yes, we'll get back to this next week. I'm already thinking about what to read next. I'm thinking about reading some D&D books, or it could be literally anything else on my bookcase. There's several options. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up reading Gone Girl with you, and I'll send us all to sleep. No, his Dark Materials. I don't have any of those books. I never read them. One more word out of you, and I'm reading Twilight. You wait. Oh my god, I don't want to read the Twilight books. Don't make me. It's Harry Potter Snape Malfoy fanfic. Oh god, no. No, I don't have anything quite like that by Immortal. Oh my god. That sure was a time. Oh wow. I almost have to find it to in its original Italian. Might have to find my Immortal and read like a few chapters. Isn't it like 1 billion chapters long though? God, I don't know. I don't want to. It's so bad. It's so upsetting. Did you ever read the story, the Harry Potter story that was generated by AI? Because that was a weird time. The first time I read it, I tried to read it out loud, and I was just dying of laughter. I couldn't get the words out. It was so stupid. But you can literally Google it anywhere when you get the chance. Highly recommend that. Oh, pardon me. I'm so tired. Apologies. But I will be back with you guys on Monday. You're wearing your black leather shoes with red laces, black fishnet stocking with a plaid red black skirt with studs all over them, and my MCR t-shirt with black laces and white makeup and my hair done up all spiky. I feel like that was a direct quote. Have you Googled it? Oh my god. Yeah, I feel like that is exactly it. I've only ever heard internet historians' narration. That's probably all you need to hear. Let's be honest. You don't really want to, like, inflict that upon yourself. It's just... What was the main character's names? Eneby? Because I think it was supposed to be Ebony, but it was like a typo and it just became Eneby. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my god. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that's the Eneby Ravenwater Vampire something or other. ever be. I'm sure it was. Oh my god. I'm trying to think of something equally painful that I could read you guys. I don't know. Might have to look into Barry Trotter, see how that goes. Which is a Harry Potter parody, and if you haven't read it, it's totally worth at least one read. But listen, I'll be back with you guys on Monday with Final Fantasy VIII, and I really, again, I do apologize for last Monday. I don't really know what happened, but our internet kind of died and it didn't come back till the early hours of the morning, and I was already asleep, and it just was not happening. But don't worry, we didn't lose much in the way of gameplay, so we didn't all miss a bunch of stuff or lose a bunch of progress. So we'll be fine when we come back to it on Monday. But we are in the middle of a shared dream, so that's gonna be fun. And we're fighting some bug boys who are apparently soldiers or something. But yes. And then on Tuesday it is Subnautica Below Zero, and we'll be building stuff and also finding some things and making friends with aliens. I don't know. But yes, for now I will leave you here. Sleep well when you go. If it is not your bedtime, have a great time zone, and I will see you guys on Monday. Bye guys. Have a good sleep. Bye.